The chandeliers above the grand ballroom glittered like captured stars, throwing light over the hundreds of guests who had come to celebrate Jason's engagement to Cynthia. Cameras lined the velvet ropes, streaming every smile, every subtle glance, every word spoken into a sea of comments scrolling faster than anyone could read. Jason stood at the center of it all, tailored suit perfectly fitted, his father's heir ring gleaming under the soft blush rose lights. For a moment, he felt the weight of a lifetime of discipline, sacrifice, and carefully cultivated image pressing down on his shoulders, and yet he managed the easy smile expected of him. He had no idea that the same stage built to crown him would soon become his gallows. Cynthia's hand slid out of his with practiced grace, her face, the very picture of delicate sorrow, turned toward the cameras. "He's just a scum who bullied his classmates," she said, her voice breaking at just the right pitch. "I will never marry him." Gasps rolled through the hall like a wave. The comment section exploded in real time. Hashtags about betrayal and bullying began trending before she even finished the sentence. Jason's throat went dry, but before he could speak, Stephen stepped forward from the crowd. Stephen's white suit glowed under the pastel gold light, his expression calm and almost benevolent. He looked straight into the nearest camera and said, "I don't blame him anymore." His voice was soft, rehearsed. Looking back, the light boat has passed through countless mountains. The hall fell silent. That one poetic line, calmly delivered, soaked in victimhood and forgiveness, ignited a storm Jason could feel turning against him with every breath. It was the same subtle cruelty Jason had seen before, but never this perfect, never this public. Reporters, already planted in the audience, surged forward shouting questions about Jason. His alleged bullying on film sets and behind closed doors, guests whispered, some stepping back as if his presence itself might stain them. Jason opened his mouth to defend himself, but a sharp pain stung his cheek. Someone had thrown a drink. Another shouted, "Bullying scum die." Before security could react, a figure in the crowd hurled a bottle containing a clear liquid. It shattered near Jason's face, splashing across his eyes. The world became fire. A searing agony burned into his skin, clawing deeper as he staggered backward. The chandeliers blurred into a white haze. He tried to scream, but his throat locked. Acid clung to him like a living thing. He heard Cynthia's voice through the ringing in his ears, not sorrowful but cold, almost relieved. He heard Stephen say something, soft words about forgiveness, and then the crowd's noise collapsed into a distant roar, like a tide pulling away from shore. Jason fell. In the darkness that followed, fragments of his life flashed, Cynthia's quiet laughter with Stephen behind closed doors, Vanessa's superior glances, the whispered rumors that had destroyed him. He thought of his father's warning, his own foolishness, the years he spent being the golden boy everyone admired, and then there was nothing but the smell of his own burning skin and the taste of blood between his teeth. He opened his eyes and was blinded again, but this time by sunlight. The sound of running water reached him. A faded classroom ceiling hung above him, familiar yet impossibly distant. The air smelled of chalk and disinfectant. Outside the window, students laughed as if the world had never known betrayal. His heart pounded. He sat up, realizing he was back in his old school uniform, his hands unscarred, his body whole. He could feel the memories of his death, every sensation of it, threaded through his veins. At the faucet a few steps away, Stephen stood younger, hair damp, pouring water over his head. He smiled that same sly smile, the one Jason had seen right before the acid. "Have you figured out how you're going to apologize to me yet?" he asked casually, as if nothing had happened. Jason's vision sharpened, rage surged like lightning through his spine. He stood, crossed the space between them in 2 strides, grabbed Stephen's collar, and dragged him toward the restroom. "You thought I bullied you before?" Jason hissed, his voice low and lethal. "Let me show you what real hell tastes like." In his previous life, Jason was the golden boy of the entertainment industry, the kind of man who stood under soft spotlight while the world applauded, admired, envied. He was the youngest Best Actor winner in national film history, the beloved heir to Orion Media Group, and the man who, until the very last second of his downfall, truly believed in love, loyalty, and family. He had thought Cynthia loved him, not the cameras, not the fame, not the name stitched into his suit collar, but him. He remembered her laugh, delicate and sweet, the way she used to stand in his blind spots at red carpet events just to fix his collar or whisper a reminder to breathe. She called him Jason Gige, like it meant something, like they were still kids sitting under the same cherry blossom tree in middle school, sharing milk tea and dreams. He remembered how he pulled strings for her mother when her family's business went under. How he gave up a critically acclaimed international film just to stay home and help them stabilize. He remembered when Vanessa, his older sister, had warned him that Cynthia was too close to Stephen. He'd laughed. Vanessa had always been sharp-tongued, always just a little too proud of being the family's real strategist. She had called Cynthia delicate, manipulative, and ungrateful. But in that life, Jason had trusted Cynthia blindly, and Vanessa too, even when her cold superiority bled through her smiles. He thought Vanessa's criticisms were just sibling bickering, her way of compensating for not being chosen as heir. He didn't realize that deep inside, Vanessa resented him not just for being the son, but for being the one their father looked at with pride. She thought she was the one who deserved everything Jason had been handed by birth. Still, he loved them both. When Cynthia asked him not to act in scenes with female co-stars, he withdrew. When she hinted she didn't like one of his scripts, he turned it down. When Vanessa recommended Stephen as a promising young actor worth mentoring, Jason gave the boy a stage. When Cynthia told him to forgive Stephen's awkwardness, to be kind, Jason smiled and nodded, even as Stephen rehearsed his betrayal line by line. In his old life, he believed in reconciliation, in fixing things, in being better than the narrative. He tried so hard to protect the people who would eventually destroy him, and they did, publicly. Cynthia severed their engagement with tearful eyes and a trembling voice. Vanessa stood beside her, arms crossed, nodding solemnly as if carrying out a moral execution. Stephen delivered his line like a stage actor stepping into his breakthrough role. Looking back, the light boat has passed through countless mountains, and the world swallowed it whole. Jason lost everything in one night. His public image was burned alive, his fans turned, reporters branded him toxic, his face melted under the acid while the people he loved watched with dry eyes. When he died, there was no one left who truly mourned him. No justice, no truth, just silence. And now he was 17 again, body unscarred, future unwritten. The classroom buzzed around him, yet all Jason could hear was Cynthia's voice from the live stream. I will never marry him. All he could feel was the weight of Stephen's fake forgiveness and Vanessa's cold, performative righteousness. He sat quietly at his desk, one hand resting on the worn wood, eyes half-lidded in thought. His school uniform was slightly rumpled, he had deliberately left the tie loose. In his former life, he used to dress pristinely, polished to please others. Now, there was something off-kilter in his appearance, something deliberate. The class teacher called on him, and he responded with a faint smile, polite and cold. Every word he spoke was perfectly assured, controlled. His mask now was carved from the same ice they once shoved him into. He watched Cynthia from across the hallway days later. Her long honey-blonde curls bounced lightly, and her voice was just as gentle as he remembered. She tilted her head to speak to Stephen, one hand brushing his sleeve as she laughed at something he said. It was almost identical to the moment caught on camera during Jason's engagement party, her hand on Stephen's arm, that smile. He hadn't imagined it after all. She turned, noticed Jason watching, and smiled. Soft, sweet, deceptive. He nodded slightly, then turned away. That night, Jason stared at the ceiling of his bedroom. The house felt the same, cream-colored walls, faint scent of lavender from the diffuser Vanessa insisted on. But his chest held a different weight. Not grief, not heartbreak, not confusion, resolve. They called him a bully? Fine, he would be one. They said he faked kindness, that his compassion was just PR. Then he would become what they painted. Every lie they told would be dragged into reality, and he would make sure the world watched every moment of it. He would crush Stephen not with fists, but with exposure, not with rage, but with strategy. He'd strip away Cynthia's perfect image one layer at a time, and Vanessa, he'd let her build her tower just high enough to collapse from the fall. Jason didn't want justice. He wanted confirmation. He wanted the world to say, he really was that cruel. Because that meant his enemies had built their pedestals on borrowed time. It meant when he pulled the ground from beneath them, it would be them begging for redemption, and him, the villain they crafted, offering none. He whispered into the dark, voice emotionless. I'll give them the truth, they won't like it. Then he reached for his notebook, and began to plan. The morning bell rang as Jason leaned casually against the wall beside the second-floor water fountain. He looked like just another senior student waiting for the hallway to clear, school tie loosened, hands tucked into his pockets. But every movement was calculated, every breath measured. His gaze tracked Stephen walking down the hall, laughing with a cluster of girls who hadn't known him long enough to see through the softness of his voice. He was a master at appearing kind, timid, endearing. Jason waited until the crowd thinned, then stepped forward. Stephen flinched when their shoulders collided, nearly spilling the papers in his hands. "Wang!" Jason smiled politely and took a step closer. "Stephen. That's your name, right?" Stephen's brows drew together. "Yeah, why?" Jason grabbed the top paper from his stack and held it up. "Creative writing? That's ambitious." His voice carried just enough volume to draw attention. "There's a line here. The greatest pain comes not from wounds, but from injustice." He gave a small, mocking laugh. "You're still playing that sympathy card? I thought you'd try for something new in this life." Stephen looked around as students turned to listen. "Give it back." Jason handed the paper over with exaggerated care. Of course, wouldn't want to upset the class favorite. Then he stepped in close, lowering his voice to a whisper. "I warned you, you poured water on your own head last time to stage the first accusation. Don't forget who watched you do it." Stephen's expression twitched, but Jason had already turned away, the faintest smirk on his lips. At lunch, Jason sat across from Cynthia beneath the pale leaf green of the school courtyard trees. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, pretending the past never happened. He watched her carefully, tilting his head. "I saw you helping the transfer student again." Cynthia blinked. "Don't, Stephen, he was struggling in chemistry. I just explained a few formulas." "You're kind," Jason said, voice laced with subtle weight. "Too kind. You should be careful. Someone might mistake that for flirting." His tone was friendly, but a few students at nearby benches raised their heads. Cynthia's fingers tensed slightly around her chopsticks. "You know how fast rumors spread here," he added with an apologetic smile. Later that day, the first spark ignited. Someone posted a blurry image on the school forum, Stephen and Cynthia standing close, heads almost touching. The caption was simple. "New ship?" Cynthia confronted Jason the next day, voice low and furious. "Did you post that?" Jason raised both hands. "Why would I? I trust you." She didn't notice the way her classmates were already whispering. The image had spread. At home, Vanessa waited with that expression he remembered so well, exasperated righteousness wrapped in cold superiority. "You embarrassed the family," she said, sliding a printed screenshot across the dinner table. "That post reflects on all of us. Cynthia's image is linked to ours, and you know how sensitive Dad is about media speculation." Jason took the paper, glanced at it, then folded it slowly. "And?" Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "You need to make a statement." He placed the folded paper beside his glass. "What kind?" "A written apology, saying the rumors are fake, that you support Stephen and Cynthia working together." Jason smiled. "No." Vanessa leaned back. "No?" "I don't lie," he said, voice flat. "Besides, isn't it interesting that the first time Cynthia's photographed close to someone else, you're asking me to take the blame?" His eyes locked on hers. "What would people say if they found out you asked me to cover for them?" Her composure flickered. He leaned forward. "You always said I was careless, that I acted without thinking, but everything I do now, I do with intent." She opened her mouth to respond, but Jason cut her off. "You don't want a scandal? Then maybe you should have taught your pet better manners." That night, he received a message from the music department about the upcoming school talent showcase, an annual event tied to scholarship and university recommendations. Jason stared at the email for a long moment. In his past life, he never performed. He had spent the night singing love songs to Cynthia in an empty classroom while Stephen's piano solo earned him special admission. This time would be different. He walked into the music room the next morning and approached the teacher directly. "I want to submit a group performance," he said, voice steady. "Not just me, several of us. Vocals, strings, dance, full production. I'll cover the costs, instruments, outfits, rehearsal space." The teacher hesitated. "That's a lot to coordinate. The slots are almost full." Jason slid a folder across the desk. Inside were sheet music, choreography outlines, sponsorship from his father's entertainment company, and a detailed schedule. "We'll be ready." The teacher flipped through it, visibly impressed. "You've really prepared." Jason offered a charming smile. "It matters to me." By the end of the week, his performance group had been approved. He left the office just as Stephen walked in, holding his own solo piano application. Their eyes met. Jason didn't stop walking. He passed Cynthia in the hallway shortly after. She called after him. "Jason, why are you doing this? Why the sudden interest in performing?" He didn't answer. But that night, as he stood in front of his mirror adjusting the sleeves of his uniform, he stared at the reflection like it was someone else entirely. The version of himself that once begged for truth was gone. Now, he was the villain they painted. "They destroyed me on the biggest stage of my life, now I'll end their lies under the same spotlight." Jason stood under the showerhead long after the water turned cold, hands pressed flat against the tiled wall, steam fading around him. He could still hear it, Cynthia's voice slicing through the warm lights of the engagement banquet. "I will never marry him." He remembered the exact tremble in her tone, the precise angle of her tear-soaked lashes as she looked at the cameras like he was a stranger. But what haunted him more was what came after. The sound of glass shattering, the burning, the scream, and then her voice again, softer this time, almost like a confession whispered into his dying ear. "I never loved you." Jason shut his eyes, but the memories came anyway, not in order, not like a movie, just sharp fragments. The acid hitting his skin, the laughter in the crowd turning to horror, Stephen pulling Cynthia back, shielding her as Jason burned, Vanessa doing nothing, watching, Cynthia leaning into Stephen, her face contorted into pity for the cameras. His stomach turned, he stumbled from the shower and barely made it to the sink before doubling over. His body dry heaved violently, convulsing with a betrayal so deep it felt cellular. No tears came, no sobs, just this broken retching that refused to empty anything. He clutched the edge of the counter, panting, water dripping from his hair onto the porcelain. In the mirror, he looked pale, his skin smooth, no scars. His face, the one that had been eaten alive by acid, was untouched. But he didn't recognize himself anymore. Later, in the middle of lunch break, Jason stood near the school courtyard, watching from behind the library windows. He saw Cynthia pass a note to Stephen. Their heads bent close. She laughed, tilted her chin the way she used to with him. That fluttery, practiced sweetness. He remembered that same laugh, remembered her doing it beside him at press conferences, interviews, movie galas. He thought, Archie was shy then, reserved, special. Now he saw it for what it was, an act she could replay with anyone. Stephen leaned in, Cynthia touched his arm. Jason turned away before he could see more, but the image had already branded itself into him. Back home, the dining table was quiet. His father sat silently in his wheelchair, his eyes sharp despite his frailty. The man who once led a media empire now moved only with assistants. Vanessa hadn't come down for dinner. Jason helped him cut his food. His hands, now steady and calm, performed the motions on instinct. "You're not eating," his father finally said. Jason gave a half smile. "Lost my appetite." His father studied him for a moment. "The rumors are starting again." Jason nodded. "I know." There was a pause. "If you want to talk." "I don't." Jason looked at him. "Not because I don't trust you, just because I don't want to speak until it's over." His father gave a faint nod. "You're not the same." "No," Jason said softly. "I'm not." The next day, Jason sat in the office of the school therapist. He leaned back on the couch, arms folded, gaze distant. "I've been feeling detached," he said slowly. "I used to care about things, now I don't. Food doesn't taste like anything. Music sounds flat. It's like the world's turned grayscale." The counselor jotted down notes. "Have you experienced any trauma recently?" Jason smiled. "How do you define trauma?" She looked up. "Have you had a panic attack, or intrusive thoughts, nightmares?" "Every night," he answered smoothly. "Sometimes I think I'm watching myself from the outside." "Disassociation," she murmured. He leaned forward. "Can I get that in writing?" She blinked. "I'm sorry." Jason chuckled. "Nothing, just kidding." He wasn't. He wanted the paperwork, the diagnosis, the future weapon. Over the next few sessions, he gave them just enough to confirm what he needed: trauma-induced depressive disorder, possible PTSD symptoms, dissociative behavior. He made sure it was filed, properly, quietly. In the future, when they tried to use his mental instability against him again, he'd hand them this folder with a smile and ask, "Didn't your own system already validate it?" One evening, Cynthia cornered him near the vending machines. Her voice was soft, her hands tucked behind her back. "You've changed." Jason didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You don't even look at me anymore. Not like you used to." His jaw flexed. He said nothing. Her voice lowered. "Jason, what happened to you?" He turned to face her fully. "What happened?" "I died," he wanted to say. "I saw your eyes when you watched me fall. I listened to you mourn my career like it was a casualty of inconvenience. I heard you call Stephen your light." Instead, he offered her the same smile he gave to strangers. "You think I still love you, don't you?" he said, voice low. He stepped just close enough for her to freeze. "No, Cynthia. Now I understand you." Stephen had always known how to cry on cue. That much hadn't changed across timelines. With a single well-lit stream in front of a ring light and a carefully curated caption, "My side of the story," he had social media eating out of his hands. "I'm not here to cause drama," Stephen said, voice cracking just slightly. "I just want to tell the truth." He sat in front of a muted blush background, wearing a soft gray hoodie that swallowed his shoulders, eyes glistening as if he were one word away from breaking. In the chat, hearts flowed, thousands watched, transfixed. He spoke about that day at the fountain, about how Jason used to laugh when he stuttered during English recitation. He told them how he once found ink poured in his locker, how someone had torn up his test paper. He didn't name Jason directly, but everyone knew. That was the point. He left just enough to fuel speculation and sympathy. He kept using words like someone, a certain person, a classmate who was once a friend. Subtle, effective. The video hit 1 million views within 24 hours. Hashtags surged again. Justice for Stephen. Hashtag stop school. Bullying. Hashtag why did no one listen? And then Vanessa stepped in. She released an old classroom video from years ago, one where Jason, back when he was still trying to be good, had snatched a paper from Stephen's desk. In the clip, Jason called him a name, not loud, but sharp enough to sting. The soundbite was edited to loop. The end result? A perfect, damning 30-second clip of the entitled Rich Air, bullying the soft-spoken poor student. Comments poured in. "This is heartbreaking. Imagine being treated like that just for existing." "He was already trying to speak up back then. We just didn't listen." "Cynthia deserves better. So does Stephen." Jason watched it all unfold with a quiet calm that didn't belong to a teenager. He scrolled through the tags, fingers senti, ill, expression unreadable. Then he clicked on a file labeled Stage B, Setup. 3 days later, during chemistry lab, Jason raised his hand. "Miss, Stephen dropped something in the storeroom." The teacher gave permission. Jason followed Stephen to the back, phone already recording from his pocket. When the door closed, Stephen turned. "What are you?" Jason interrupted, voice low. "Go on. Cry." Stephen flinched. "What?" "Cry. Like you did on stream. Say you forgive me. Say you were afraid." Jason's smile was cold. "Rehearse it. Just like last time." Stephen's eyes darted. "What are you trying to do?" Jason stepped closer. "Say it. I'll even give you the lines." Jason scared me. I thought he'd hurt me again. It's what you're building, right? Victimhood. Fame. Sympathy. Stephen's hands balled into fists. "You're insane. I'm what you made me." The confrontation lasted 2 minutes, Jason speaking with surgical cruelty, Stephen cracking under pressure. When it ended, Jason walked out first. That night, a new video hit the school forum. But something went wrong. The clip was edited, cut before context, right before Stephen clenched his jaw and whispered, "I'm not afraid of you anymore, because now I have them." It ended instead on Jason stepping forward, voice sharp, captured mid-line, "Say it, cry." Without the rest, it looked bad. It looked like a threat. Within hours, the narrative flipped again. He's threatening him off camera. He's even recording it for control. This is psychological abuse. Why is the school doing nothing? And then came Cynthia. Her stream went live just after midnight. Her eyes red, makeup soft and smudged just enough to look accidental. She sat in silence for almost a full minute before speaking. "I know people won't believe me," she whispered, "but I have to say something." A pause, a breath. Then the trembling voice of a girl who had rehearsed the perfect confession. "He hit me once, I forgave him, but now, I fear for my life." Jason watched it live, not out of shock, but precision. He watched the tears, the pacing, the way she clutched a tissue to her chest like a fragile bird. He remembered that same look from his past life, the night she called him scum while the world watched. The chat exploded in support. "He's dangerous. Protect Cynthia. Stephen was right all along. Jason Wang must be expelled." By morning, the school board summoned him. He sat in the principal's office with the same half-smile he wore when Cynthia called off their engagement in front of the cameras. "We're receiving pressure," the principal said, lips pressed tight. "There's talk of expulsion." Jason said nothing. "We need you to explain what happened in that recording." Jason tilted his head. "Which one? There are so many." The principal hesitated. Jason leaned forward. "Am I being punished for something proven, or because a girl cried prettier than I did?" The principal's hands twitched, but he didn't reply. Afterward, Jason walked out into the autumn sun, the parking lot quiet under a pale blue sky. He took a breath, heading toward his driver's car, and that's when it happened. A voice shouted from behind. Something shattered. Jason ducked instinctively, the sound of liquid hitting pavement sharp and acidic. A bottle rolled to his feet, its contents eating into the asphalt. He turned slowly. A girl stood frozen, a hoodie pulled low over her face, her hand still raised. Security ran from across the yard. She didn't move. Jason's heartbeat thundered, but his expression stayed composed. He walked to the bottle, crouched, and picked it up with gloved fingers. The smell was unmistakable, sulfuric acid. Security tackled the girl to the ground. She shrieked something about justice for Stephen, about Cynthia, about monsters and punishment. Cameras were already out, phones raised. Jason turned to one of them. The smile he got. The camera was quiet, unbothered, sharp. "It's cute," he said, eyes shining with a madness no one had earned the right to see. "They think they're still the main characters." The auditorium was drowning in anticipation. Golden light spilled from the ceiling like melted spotlight, dust floating through the air like it knew something unforgettable was about to happen. The seats were packed, and the stage shimmered under rows of pastel gold beams and pale rose uplights. The school celebration performance had always been a big deal, but this year it felt biblical. Stephen sat at the edge of the stage, sleeves rolled just enough to look effortless, a white grand piano gleaming beneath his fingers. His head was bowed slightly, the picture of humility and artistic genius. Cynthia sat front row, her hands clasped over her chest, eyes shining with admiration that wasn't subtle in the slightest. The MC announced his name like a prophecy, and the room hushed. Stephen adjusted the bench, then, with a delicate breath and one last glance at the girl who'd chosen his side, he began. "Claire de Lune." The opening notes floated like whispers, soft, melancholic, deceptively fragile. And just like that, the entire room leaned forward, breath held. He swayed gently as he played, eyes fluttering shut, his expression that of a man deeply wounded and somehow still kind. The narrative had been shaped well. The crowd believed in his pain, believed in Cynthia's love, believed Jason was no longer worthy of applause. That belief shattered with the sound of the auditorium doors swinging open. A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience as Jason entered, not rushing, limping. A dark coat swirled around his knees, hair pushed back, left cheek bruised, one hand bandaged. His presence halted everything. He walked with purpose, shoulders steady despite the obvious pain, and climbed the stage stairs as if he belonged there more than anyone ever had. The spotlight shifted. For a moment, the piano notes faltered. Jason walked past Stephen, brushing him lightly by the shoulder, or as he passed. Then he sat at the second piano on the stage, one brought earlier for another group piece, forgotten in the chaos of the program reshuffle. The auditorium froze. Jason didn't look at anyone. He cracked his fingers once, then began to play. Not Claire de Lune. Beethoven's Symphony No. 5. Fate. The opening note struck like thunder. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. The audience jerked, startled. The stark difference in tone shattered the softness Steven had built. Jason played with sharp wrists, his fingers crashing into keys, not with aggression, but with truth. Every note felt like a heartbeat, like a pulse coming back to life. The music filled the entire hall, roaring, demanding attention. Then, halfway through the piece, he stopped. The hall held its breath. Jason stood. He faced the audience, not the cameras. "I wasn't supposed to play tonight," he said, his voice low, calm, echoing through the silence. "But when someone tries to steal your life for the second time, it's polite to interrupt." Murmurs rose. Jason turned to Steven. "You play well, when it's not for sympathy." Steven's expression shifted. Jason continued. "Unfortunately for you, I came prepared this time." He pulled out a sleek USB from his pocket and plugged it into the projector's laptop by the side of the stage. The screen behind them flickered to life. The first clip played, Steven in a rehearsal room, laughing cruelly after a live stream. "You think they'll ever believe him again?" The second, Cynthia and Vanessa in a cafe, unaware they were being recorded. Vanessa, "He'll be done the moment the footage leaks." Cynthia, "Perfect, I want him to crawl." Laughter followed. Gasps echoed through the audience like breaking glass. Jason's voice cut in again. "Hospital records," he said. "From the night I was attacked, signed confessions from 2 anonymous donors, the girls who were paid to accidentally spill drinks on me during press events, Steven and Vanessa's transactions to a private IP tracing company. And here..." He turned to Cynthia. "Your interview at the clinic, fake bruises, paid tears." Cynthia stood suddenly, face contorting. "Turn it off." Jason tilted his head. "Why? It's your best performance." "You bastard," she shrieked. "You don't get to stand up there like some saint after everything you did, after everything we've done for you." The mask cracked. She took a step forward. "We gave you fame. We gave you a story. You were nothing without us." Jason didn't move. His voice, when it came, was quiet. "Don't bother apologizing," he said. "I forgave you the moment I died." Silence. The kind that swallows an entire room. Steven's fingers twitched at his side. His face had gone pale, lip trembling as the last few frames of the video replayed, Cynthia whispering to him, "He's finished." Jason looked down at the audience. Some stared wide-eyed, others whispered, a few clapped, hesitantly, unsure. He didn't wait. He turned from the piano, walked past Steven, past the shattered pieces of the performance, past the history they had all weaponized against him. He walked offstage and into the blinding spotlight waiting at the wings, and for the first time in either life, he didn't look back. 4 years later, the city forgot his name, but only on the surface. They whispered it behind closed doors, flinched when Rainfall Pictures' logo flickered onto screens, and blinked in disbelief when every major festival winner had the same quiet producer's credit, Jason Zhu. He hadn't disappeared. He'd built an empire from ashes. After the performance night scandal, Jason left with a bruised ribcage, a silent smile, and a single suitcase. No farewell letters, no explanations, just silence. He boarded a flight to Switzerland, where a genius researcher named Anna Chen had been working on emotion mapping neural scripts. Jason funded her, co-signed her patents, turned her tech into art. Together, they created the world's first empathy-driven storytelling algorithm, stories that felt like people, and people paid millions to feel again. Rainfall Pictures was born out of revenge, but rose out of precision. Jason built it from the shadows, no interviews, no stage appearances, just cold strategy and warm execution. He owned satellite labs in Tokyo, Munich, Toronto. Heads of studios nodded when he entered. Former tormentors stumbled to pronounce his name. But he never returned. Not until now. The marble ballroom glittered with ceiling chandeliers, and laughter spun in champagne. It was the Winter Rose Auction, an annual gala where elite creators auctioned unreleased projects to the highest bidders. This year's headliner, Vanessa Liu, Cynthia Yan, and Stephen Zhao, presenting their upcoming docudrama, Fate, the Jason Zhu story. Completely authorized, Cynthia had claimed during promotion, "It's our tribute to a lost friend." The crowd didn't know Jason was very much alive, but they were about to. He entered through the back, flanked by Anna and his legal advisor. No cameras saw him yet. The hall paused, some attendees blinked in confusion, Stephen stiffened mid-sentence. Cynthia dropped her wine. Jason's coat swirled behind him, black and tailored, shoes tapping sharp across marble, as if conducting his own rhythm. His eyes scanned the auction screen. The bid price was at $3 million. For a lie, Jason said calmly. Let me raise the stakes. Gasps echoed. The crowd turned fully toward him now. The auctioneer froze. Stephen paled. Cynthia tried to step forward. Jason Geiger. He didn't blink. Don't call me brother, Jason said, voice slicing through the velvet air, when you pushed me off the cliff. The screen flickered. Not the promo reel, a new video. Uploaded anonymously, then redirected from the Rainfall Pictures servers. The first clip, Vanessa and Cynthia discussing how to recreate Jason's suicide night for dramatic accuracy. Second clip, Stephen yelling at a background actress, grabbing her by the collar on set. Third, Cynthia forging Jason's signature on a mental health waiver. Live reactions flooded in, phones vibrated, media teams pulled back in horror. Jason turned to the auctioneer. I suggest canceling the listing. The IP belongs to me, filed and secured 4 days ago. Cynthia's breath hitched. That's impossible. We trademarked the narrative. Jason arched a brow. The narrative was my life, not a story you get to rent. Vanessa tried to charge forward, security intercepted. Police arrived moments later, weaving through the stunned audience. Vanessa was the first to be cuffed, fraud, conspiracy, wiretapping. Cynthia followed, charged with tampering evidence and accessory to attempted murder. Stephen tried to run. A journalist shoved a mic in his face, just as the fourth leaked clip played, him rehearsing tears in front of a mirror. The public backlash exploded like wildfire. Jason didn't smile. He simply left the ballroom as quietly as he'd entered. Weeks passed, media turned, endorsements dropped. Stephen's solo career evaporated after another clip leaked, this one showing clear physical assault on set. He vanished from the public. Cynthia, in orange prison scrubs, sat alone in a cold visitor room as Jason entered, eyes unreadable. She didn't cry, not at first. Then, as silence thickened, her voice broke. I regret it. Jason looked at her. I know. Do you ever miss it? She asked. Before the fall? He didn't answer right away. I miss the idea of you, he said softly. But you buried that version with my body. She swallowed. Jason. Too late, he interrupted. This lifetime, I'm the one who gets the last word. He stood. Walked out of the room before her tears even hit the table. That night, snow blanketed the city like memory rewritten. Jason walked through it alone at first, dark coat flaring in the breeze, the cold brushing against his jaw. The skyline glimmered like shattered glass, but it didn't haunt him now. His phone buzzed. A message from David. Dinner's hot, I'm waiting. Jason smiled slightly. He typed back, coming. He tucked his phone away. Ahead, the city lights blurred behind falling snow, moonlight faded, and just beyond the horizon, the sun began to rise.